In this book right here, it says that this guy right here blackmailed Nelson Rockefeller to get his votes to get the state of Israel into a place where it was official. Speaking of doggedly tenacious, did you hear Candace Owens this week? We got 2 clips tonight. This first one sets it up because she's looking for this book right here. This book right here is a big topic of conversation. The best she had was an article about maybe this book right here, which is not available in the United States. It's almost like a banned book. And when you understand the context of not just what you probably know from this book, but these other red tabs of what I haven't read on this show about this book, it's very spicy. And then we have the man himself, John Loftus, in a clip right after Candace. But we're going to comment on Candace to set up the Babe Ruth of these types of topics, John Loftus, because he's going to knock it out of the park and reinforce a whole bunch of other things that come up later in this podcast, as if he knew it 5 or 6 years ago when we did the interview. All right, without further ado, Candace is going to say the quiet part out loud for a little bit. Colby, it's already queued up to where I thought we should dig in because it also relates to the JFK files release. I'm not trying to make all this stuff connect, just observing and asking questions.
I read this article, which I think nobody has read except for me, but probably not, in Autonomy magazine. Now, for posterity, because I will be called an anti-Semite no matter what, Autonomy magazine is an international news magazine that caters to the Orthodox Jewish community, okay? It is published weekly in New York and in Israel. The magazine was launched in November of 2010 by Rabbi Frankfurter and his wife. Again, I say this only to explain to you that this information provided is not anti-Semitic, okay? The facts here really don't care about your religion. On February 10, 2021, Autonomy magazine published an article that blew my mind, and it was entitled, Blackmailing Rockefeller, the Scandal That Helped Israel Become a State. Okay, you're in. We're paying attention now. This is crazy. In the article, the writer, John Loftus, reflects upon how he once upon a time co-authored a book that was called The Witness Tree. So I'm going to read to you what he says about that book. He writes, back in 2008, I had written a historical novel about Reuven Shiloah. Okay, remember that name, Reuven Shiloah, with my Canadian friend and co-author, Brendan Howley. Our book, The Witness Tree, was fiction that was based on fact. But putting it out as a novel made it considerably easier for me to circumnavigate the censors at the CIA. Despite 5-star reviews, the only copies ever published were by Random House Canada, and they are difficult to find in print. Apparently, The Witness Tree is simply too sensitive ever to be published in America, even as fiction, because it exposes the families of 2 CIA directors as money launderers for the Nazis. Worse, The Witness Tree tells the truth about how Reuven Shiloah used his knowledge of those secret Nazi connections to blackmail Nelson Rockefeller into creating the State of Israel.
Whoa, easy. All right, so Reuven Shiloah is a real person. So is John Loftus. And John Loftus wrote many books. America's Nazi Secret. He wrote The Secret War Against the Jews. He also wrote The Witness Tree, which is what we're talking about right here. Now, The Witness Tree, it covers a lot of topics. And as she just mentioned, Alan Dulles, blackmail, Dulles family, Eleanor Dulles, her husband was suicided, ? John Foster Dulles, who also didn't like Eleanor dating outside of their circles, I guess is the easy way to say it. You have Mossad, you've got the Nazis, you've got Nelson Rockefeller, Reuven Shiloah, St. John Philby, Devil's Chessboard. It's like you got the whole Anglo-American establishment coterie right there. And if we were to go to Reuven Shiloah, who Candace was just talking about right there, let's just open it in the browser real quick. Oh my goodness, real person. Here's a Wikipedia page. Reuven Shiloah was the leader of Israeli intelligence community and one of its founders. He was the founder and first head of Mossad. That's interesting because in this book right here, it says that this guy right here blackmailed Nelson Rockefeller to get his votes to get the state of Israel into a place where it was official. That's kind of a big deal. Now, before I can go to that, I have to say, shout out to theme show creator for Grand Theft World, Joe Double. He sent me that Candace interview. He said she mentions Loftus, and that's how I was able to track that down to get it into this week's time capsule. But if we go back over here to the witness tree, let's square it up a little bit. This is a first edition, Canadian printed, Random House, 2007 edition of the witness tree. And if we flip to this page right here, we might have some incriminating commentary as laid out by Messrs. Loftus and Howley on how this worked. Let's see. Let's make sure it's in focus. Focus means focus on one course until successful. Let's be practical, Ellie. Right or wrong? A Jewish name is hardly an asset in most circles. So they're pressuring their sister to get rid of this guy. And eventually, they do. In the double cross section, they do start to get rid of this guy. And then by the end of this book, we have the Reuven Shiloh. Now, you got to read the postscript to get this, right? This is page, it doesn't even have a number because it's the postscript. All right, so here's Reuven Shiloh did, in fact, mastermind the Mossad from the networks that are recounted. What's recounted is in chapters LVI. Are we kidding? Is this a test? Am I doing it live? I don't know. What is LVI in Roman numerals? That's beyond my capacity to do it live.
56.
56. There you go. LII. Which one's that?
52.
All right, good. Now we're learning Roman numeralese. All right, so there's a Nazi secret, right? They're Nazi bankers, Century Club. We'll get to the Century Club in a second. But these are the people who were funding Hitler. And then the guy who's founding the Mossad, he gets a hold of some blackmail information. And then by 1947, right here, November 22nd, 1947, is when the blackmail goes on with Reuven Shiloh and Nelson Rockefeller. Okay? November 22nd, is that a date important in history? Because we're about to see some evidence that might relate to another November 22nd, and it does involve the same nation state that Nelson Rockefeller might have got blackmailed with his Nazi friends into helping to form. But the resources available in narrative form, as we've read on the show many times, are quite fascinating. And when based off of historical documents, testimony from the guy who founded Mossad himself, right? Like all these sort of things, there's a lot more to be learned. And I'm glad we're living in a part of history where it's actually something that is being publicly discussed. I mean, Candace has millions of people in her audience. For the first time, some very, heretofore kind of schooled people are starting to learn. There's a Nazi history. It empowered the people who killed JFK. That cover-up and blackmail rides up to today in the Epstein files and all that's going on with that. And in between time, you had a couple Bush presidents that were coming from that Nazi heritage of being financing Hitler, and then coming back to America and having like a rise to fame and power and political cover-ups for a long time, including 9/11 on the other bookend of the JFK assassination. So there's a lot of moving parts, and the history seems complex until you learn a couple of the people, a couple of the stories, and then, it can kind of take root in a way that you can understand. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's funny how, this is the first time I've heard of this book, and now that I can't find it, it's the only thing I want in the world.
No, you want the best. Was it the best evidence? What's the JFK book? There was some. There was a book I heard about recently and I didn't have it, and I went and looked it up, and the cheapest copy was $300, and the most, then it went up to like 1,000 or something. Best evidence, it's on the JFK assassination. It has all the timeline tracking of the witnesses who mysteriously died right afterwards because Oswald's ghost killed them. The magic bullet had more customers waiting. I don't know how it worked.
Everyone's doing some kind of self-help these days, and you can find a million self-help courses out there. Most other courses out there are hosting lectures. They're hosting videos, they're maybe even doing Q&As, and these are great starting points to encourage learning. But at Autonomy, we believe that hands-on practice is the best way to really lock in what we're learning. There's no better way to gain confidence and mastery than through action. After each lecture, we practice the concepts we've learned with other students, giving and receiving feedback in a non-judgmental environment. The result is mastery of concepts like entrepreneurship, ethical sales, and self-reliance in an environment that directly translates to the real world. Plus, you make connections with other like-minded individuals who are learning right alongside you, and you have a lifetime membership in the community. The Autonomy course with Richard Grove equips you with confidence, competence, and courage in a world filled with confusion and noise. You can learn more at getautonomy.info. We'll see you there.
What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come